What exactly is porous asphalt? I'm Rick, and this is Town of Olive News. According to the EPA, porous asphalts are versions of traditional asphalt or concrete with reduced sand and fines to allow for greater porosity and infiltration. PICP consists of manufactured concrete units with small openings between permeable joints that contain highly permeable small-sized aggregates. Basically, it's a material that allows water to infiltrate back into the ground more effectively. On the surface, this may seem trivial, but in reality, porous asphalt proves to be extremely beneficial to the environment. These benefits occur due to the prevention of flooding and subsequently runoff. Today, we intend to provide further explanation into the benefits of this technology and explain how an investment in porous asphalt is an investment in our future. We'll now hear from our ground reporter, Candy, all about the potential carnage that flooding and runoff bring to humans like us.
Hello, Rick. I am here currently in Boyceville, New York, standing only a few feet from the wreckage that took place back here in 2011. Now, during Hurricane Irene, the floodwaters became so powerful that it caused the collapse of the Boyceville Bridge. As you can see behind me, practically the entire thing was swept away. This piece of infrastructure was never rebuilt during the repairs made after the storm, leaving many without an effective method to enter town for essentials like groceries and prescriptions. Now, this is one of the many possibilities that can occur when proper care is not taken to install infrastructure that can withstand severe flooding. Luckily, no one was injured this time around, but we cannot bank on our luck next time. Back to you, Rick.
Thank you, Candy. Now, as you've seen, when water cannot properly permeate the ground, it can exacerbate the negative effects of flooding, leading to destruction of property and even grave injury. However, this is not our only problem. Lack of ground permeability also leads to excess runoff. Now, this is a problem for a couple of reasons. We'll now hear from our aquatic ecosystem expert, Irving.
Thank you, Rick. Now, I'm right outside the infamous Onsior Lake, and believe it or not, fishing season was once very bountiful here. Now, what has occurred in this lake is known as eutrophication, which is an increase in the water's fertility. Now, what does this mean exactly? So up there yonder is some agricultural lands, and fertilizers such as phosphates have been carried down from the agricultural land via runoff into this here lake. Now, what does that mean exactly? So what results from this is known as an algal bloom. So during, the warmer months, you might see this entire here pond covered in entirely green algae. That is an algal bloom. And that is a very big problem for a couple of reasons. One being, it blocks out the sunlight. The critters on the bottom, all them plants, cannot photosynthesize properly. And additionally, once this algae starts to die off, all of them decomposer microbes need some oxygen. And they use all of the oxygen. There's a huge oxygen demand. And every other little critter in this here pond does not have oxygen and will die. This is known as a dead zone. And this is not good for us for a couple of reasons. As I mentioned, fishing season canceled. Number two, there's a decrease in biodiversity. That means if there was ever an accident, some sort of environmental stress out here, these organisms, the fish, everything here would not be able to survive or adapt to these conditions because there's not enough genetic diversity available. All right? You couldn't pay me to drink this water, that's for sure. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Irving. So as you can see, without proper ground permeability, the resulting runoff can carry some nasty stuff into our water. Now, for the last part of this segment, we will be visiting our ground reporter Ignatius outside the far end of the Esopus to tell us a little bit about the environmental effects of erosion that result from stormwater runoff.
Hey, how you doing, Rick? I'm located right outside the far end of the Esopus Creek, and today I'm going to be going over sort of some of the repercussions that excess flooding and runoff bring regarding erosion and turbidity. So as you can see, the creek is sort of this chocolate milk color. We've had some rain these past couple days, and that's actually not really good for the environment, and I'm going to be explaining why. So when water cannot properly permeate the ground, it enters the creek via runoff, bringing various sediments with it, but also increasing the amount of water in the creek itself. And in turn, this increases the force at which the water is hitting the side of the bank, increasing the rate of erosion, as well as getting that extra sediment and possibly pollutants from the runoff. Now, this is not a good thing whatsoever, mainly because increased erosion leads to increased turbidity. And turbidity is what gives you that chocolate milk color, basically the opaqueness of the water. So this is bad for a couple of reasons. Number one, the sunlight cannot properly penetrate the water, so all of the plants living at the bottom cannot properly photosynthesize. Additionally, it's very, very harmful for the wildlife, especially the fish that live in this creek. Large pieces of debris can strike fish, killing them, injuring them, doing, unimaginable things. Secondly, it destroys habitats as well as spawning sites. So these fish have nowhere to live, but most importantly, they have nowhere to reproduce. So if our fish populations are not replenishing, we know how ecosystems work. That creates a chain reaction, and soon enough, you're going to be seeing some major effects on how the ecosystem operates. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you so much, Ignatius. Now, to conclude this segment, I'd like to mention a couple of things. Number one, the main disadvantages of porous asphalt, that being the cost. According to the University of New Hampshire, porous asphalt costs around 20% more than the average asphalt. Now, you might think this is, a complete deal breaker. However, according to the same university, porous asphalt does last for around 20 years. So not only is this an investment of our money, but also an investment in our future and our safety and health, which really has no price. Just by starting with a few, parking lots, we can really make a difference. We should not try to shoot for the stars when it comes to sustainability. We need to take one step at a time, and this is a very realistic step that we can take. Town of Olive, porous asphalt is the way to go.